Friends, allies, and Americans, welcome to the Defense of Democracy podcast, where we tell the stories of folks who defend your children's rights by advocating for inclusive public school systems and who fight for diversity across our nation. I'm your host, Karen Swoboda. Let's get into it. Today's podcast is brought to you by the New Jersey Public Education Coalition. Their motto is Engage, Educate, Collaborate. And my guest today is Jessie Hagopian with the Zinn Education Project. Jessie, welcome to the podcast. How are you doing today?
Hey, I'm good. Thanks for having me on.
Well, I'm really excited to speak with you. Your group has been doing, well, first of all, you're new to our coalition, so welcome. You've been doing a lot of awesome work about fighting against book bans and censorship and really spreading the word. You guys have been so impressive in the advocacy work that you've been doing on a national level. So my pleasure to welcome you to the show today. Why don't we start by just talking about, first tell me who you are and your background, and then we can go into the Zinn Education Project.
Oh, sure. Well, I've been an educator for the last 20 years. My entire adult life, I've taught an elementary level, middle school level, and for the last 10 years, I was at my alma mater, Garfield High School here in Seattle. I began teaching in Washington, D.C. at an elementary school in Southeast D.C., and I really got my understanding of the education system by driving by the White House every day and then going into a neighborhood that was completely devoid of public services and completely segregated, 100% Black students at my school. And it was a school that was just crumbling into the ground. The first research project I ever assigned my fifth grade students was to research someone they admired from history that had helped make change for a better society. And they came in with the projects on a Friday. I was proud of them. They had these wonderful posters, and we were getting ready to present them all on a Monday. And we come into school on Monday, and all the posters are destroyed because it had just rained into the classroom. And
my God.
We found out there was a hole in the ceiling. Right?
Oh.
So in the shadow of the White House, what I learned is there just isn't the resources to support our Black and brown students. And this was also the same year as 9/11. And so we saw the smoke from the Pentagon rising up from our window. It was terrifying. It was a really hard year.
Yeah.
But what was most terrifying to me was seeing how quickly the U.S. government could mobilize untold billions of dollars to go bomb people in the Middle East, but didn't have the money to fix the hole in the ceiling just down the street from the halls of government. I had that work order in for 3 years with an industrial-sized garbage can under the whole rain, right? And so that's why I became an education activist, because we live in the world's richest country, and yet we treat children like that, and it's unacceptable. And then we try to lie to them about the history of people who have tried to make it better. So that's where we're at.
It's really fascinating and heartbreaking for me to hear, as somebody who has privilege as a white straight woman. And I know a lot of my listeners, are shocked and surprised by things that they hear. Like, I cannot imagine a school like what you're describing, with the whole, and just as a mom, of kids who work so hard on those, I'm just picturing these kids coming into the classroom, and it hits on a very visceral level when you work so hard. And what message is that sending to the kids, their parents, the teachers, about how important you are in that moment and in that area, which, like you said, is, people don't think that segregation exists or that there are repercussions ongoing. And I'm seeing it every day, and I'm trying my best to bring it to light, to say that this is absolutely still a problem, that this is not something in the past. This is something that our Americans are dealing with every day. So that's an incredible eye-opening tale. So Jesse, tell me about the Zinn Education Project. Let's start with the name. Why is that what it's called?
Yeah. Well, the Zinn Education Project takes its name from the great historian Howard Zinn, who wrote the best-selling book, A People's History of the United States.
Mm-hmm.
And this book transformed the way so many people view U.S. history. Instead of telling history from the perspective of those in power, the generals and the presidents and the wealthy, A People's History uh, began to look at history from the perspective of those out of power, of Native people who had their land colonized,
Mm,
of Black people who were kidnapped from Africa
mm,
and forced to work on these enslaved labor camps that we call politely plantations.
mm.
Um, it looked at the history of wars not from those who declared them, but from those who had to fight and die in them.
Right.
And we at the Zinn Education Project create curriculum from that perspective to bring the voices that have long been marginalized and pushed out of the corporate textbooks to the center of the curriculum. And we have now over 160,000 teachers across the country who have registered at our website and use our free downloadable People's History lessons.
Wow.
And it's just an incredible network that we have around the country of teachers committed to this kind of education.
How long have you been in existence? When did this start?
It's been around since long before I joined since 2020, but it
Hmm.
was around for probably a decade before that,
Wow.
and has been steadily making progress in changing the way we teach history.
Well, I know that Defense of Democracy was very proud and honored to partner with you on your Teach the Truth initiative in June. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
What an incredible day of action we had on June 8th. And thank you for your participation in Defense of Democracy's work to help support it. Uh, this was our fourth annual National Teach Truth Day of Action. And we had some incredible initiatives across the country. We made it very easy to participate in the day of action by creating pop-up displays that we shipped to anyone that wanted to organize for the day. And this included a number of important books that have been banned, a card that goes under each book explaining the valuable lessons that are lost when that book is banned, and Teach Truth posters and buttons and more. And so we had cities over 100, and there it is.
Yep.
Love that. We had over 170 different Teach Truth rallies, or pop-ups, historical walking tours, banned book swaps, read-ins, and more. Uh, Incredible. In Miami, the New Republic hosted a Right to Read celebration featuring the first ever Toni Morrison Award for Courage.
Mm,
And the evening featured authors who were banned or who were threatened to be banned. In Cleveland, Ohio, the NAACP, the oldest civil rights group in the country, partnered with Honesty for Ohio Education and the Cleveland Teachers Union. And they did a flash mob, a reading flash
no.
mob.
Oh my gosh. How did they? What? Oh
Yeah,
my gosh. I'm writing a note. Okay.
there's just so
That's
many
hilarious.
creative actions that educators and their allies did. In North Carolina, the Guilford County Association of Educators held a funeral procession for the budget, because they were
Whoa.
cutting the education budget, and took that procession straight to the county courthouse.
Wow.
In Seattle, we held a Books Not Bombs rally outside the library with our pop-up display to talk about the censorship of books and teaching about race, gender, sexuality, and
Mm,
Palestine. So there was just so many great efforts around the country.
So we, and I want to speak as someone who actually participated in this,
How'd it go?
and yeah, that's why I got my materials right here at my desk. I want to speak as a participant, how easy it was. I mean, and that was what I needed, because I run defensive democracy. I am a mom. I have kids I'm putting into college. Like, I'm busy, busy, busy. And the convenience of being able to, like, your group came to we have a nationwide call every Tuesday night, and we invited you all to speak about this upcoming Teach the Truth Day. And it was as simple as filling out my name on your form. And then within a week, I had a box delivered to my door, and it had all the materials in it and all this lovely display and the books and everything. I mean, I have these beautiful children's books that I'm going to be, now I don't have kids that are old enough. I'm going to be contributing them to some local free libraries. It was just a lovely, and everything was so polished and so well thought out and put together. Congratulations, kudos for an amazing nationwide effort. Multiple teams at Defensive Democracy were involved. So, it was actually one of the most well done national efforts, which is not an easy thing to do, that I've been involved with. So congratulations. That was amazing.
Well, I have an amazing team with me.
You really do.
Deborah Menkart, Executive Director of Teaching for Change and co-director of the Zinn Education Project, had this vision of the pop-up boxes, and it was wonderful to see how easy it made it. I'm so glad you had a good experience, and you were joined by thousands of others across the country.
I certainly did, and I would love to include, if you could, in the podcast notes, for anyone who wants to check. I believe you guys have a slideshow or some visuals that kind of illustrate what that day in June was like. So I would love to share those as well.
Good idea.
This is probably a good time for me to do a shout out to one of my volunteers who hosted a Teach the Truth. Well, she didn't just host the Teach the Truth project. She actually introduced me to the Zinn Education Project. So I'm forever grateful to Nicole Beer, who is my chapter chair in Nevada, for making this connection. And I count on constantly. I mean, our collaborations with other terrific organizations are such an important part of who Defensive Democracy is. So I'm very grateful to Nicole for connecting me with you and your group. So Jesse, let's talk about what you see happening in the future. School is going to be reopening. We're going to be having this really intense election. I mean, there's a lot going on. What's your kind of forecast or feel for what kind of resistance can happen to protect our education system?
We're in a pivotal moment in the history of the struggle for education and in U.S. history. One possible future has been laid out very clearly by the Heritage Foundation and their document called Project 2025. And in that document, they put forward a very chilling picture of a dystopian future that could await us if we allow it. And they want to begin by abolishing the Department of Education altogether. They want to nationalize all the laws that we see in Florida that are banning teachers from teaching the truth about U.S. history, about systemic racism, about gender and sexuality. They want to take the worst of the draconian laws that punish teachers for having books that they disapprove of in their classroom and spread those laws all across the country. In Florida, it's a felony if you get caught with the wrong book in your classroom, a book about race or gender or sexuality that extreme right-wing advocates deem inappropriate could land an educator in jail for 5 years. Right. And then
I mean, I'm a little speechless right now because It sounds so far-fetched, and I'm not doubting you, but I am saying that what I am going to do is I will also be including information about the law you're referencing in the podcast notes for
Yes,
anybody who has a doubt about it.
yes. It is so
Wow.
outlandish that it's hard to believe it's true. I mean,
Right.
in Florida, the official state curriculum says that slavery was of, quote, personal benefit to Black people. I mean, these things
Oh my
sound like they're coming out of a fascist dictatorship or um, the Confederacy, right?
God.
But this is America 2024, and it is not properly being covered in the media, and so people aren't aware just how far these laws have gone
Mm.
and the meticulous planning that is going on by organizations like the Heritage Foundation that
Mhm.
are funded by billionaires
Right.
who like to pass off their extremist ideas as a grassroots mobilization of parents, but in fact they have cobbled together some parent organizations because of the extreme wealth that they have. But their views don't represent the majority of people, but they are definitely trying to impose them on us anyway. You know that today over half of all students in not over half, almost half. Let me be precise. Almost half of students in the public schools in the United States are in a jurisdiction where educational gag orders have been placed on teachers so that they are not permitted to teach the truth about race or gender or sexuality. This is an extreme situation, and the future that they have on offer for us. But thankfully, there's an incredible grassroots movement that you're part of, that I'm
Mhm.
part of,
Mhm.
and that many others around the country are building this Teach Truth movement, this movement for the freedom to learn.
Mhm.
And I just want to acknowledge that we stand on the shoulders of giants, that this movement has been going on since before the founding of this country. In 1740, the first anti-literacy laws were passed that banned Black people from being able to read or write. And this was in the context of the Stono Rebellion of 1739 in South Carolina.
Mhm.
And they not only put that rebellion down and killed all the enslaved people who had led it, including a man named Jemmy, but they wanted to ban Black people from ever being able to read or write the word liberty again.
Wow.
And those laws passed throughout the colonies,
Mm.
and people resisted them and taught each other how to read and write even when it was illegal, and that's the tradition we stand in today.
Yes, absolutely. And I mean, and this is why the attack on education is so insidious, because it is um I mean, I didn't see it coming, right? Nobody really paid attention to school board meetings, and then wow, that was a weak link, and it is hammered daily, and you're absolutely right. It's the grassroots resistance. It's a lot, it's a heavy lift, but there are more people ready to fight against that. There are more people who want education to flourish in this country and want to learn and want to educate. So I have to, like, to me, I always go back to that. I'm like, you know what? I'm tired. I'm exhausted, or sometimes you lose the battle. You lose a lot of battles, but we have to keep our eye on the prize in the war.
No, that's right. I mean, the polls have showed over and over again that those who want to expand the teaching of Black history,
Yes.
expand the teaching of how systemic racism works, are in the majority. Uh,
Hmm. Hmm.
but the problem is we don't have the majority of wealth. so
Right. Yeah.
so it's difficult to get our policies enacted, and that's why we have to use the advantage we have, which is power in numbers,
Absolutely.
and organizing the rallies,
Hmm.
and the teach-ins and the read-ins are crucial to building this struggle um, that has been going on for generations. You know, ethnic studies was won by students in
Mm.
the late 60s who went on strike at their campus in San Francisco State and demanded that everyone should get to learn about their culture, a very basic idea. And they had to face the National Guard and tear gas
Mhm.
and beatings to get to learn about their history. And we're not going to relinquish those lessons today. We need to build on that, and today expand ethnic studies departments in public schools across the country, add Black studies history to the curriculum, and Indigenous studies and Asian American studies and women's studies and queer studies, and everybody who's been marginalized and pushed out of the corporate textbooks deserve to see themselves. That's the only way that we can build a truly robust, thriving society.
Absolutely. And I have heard the phrase, like if you don't study history, you're doomed to repeat it. But then I heard an amendment to that recently, which was if you are fighting to delete history, then you want to repeat it.
That's right.
Okay. And I think in a lot of ways, these religious extremists are not being, they're being very open about that, because they're saying, oh, well, we want to go to a better time. We want to go back to the 60s and the 50s. And that wasn't a better time for all Americans. It was a better, I mean, it's very romanticized, right?
That's
But
right.
it certainly wasn't a better time for Black Americans
That's
by
right.
any means. And not far behind them was women, right? Like this was not a better time. But it is, if you want to kind of literally whitewash everything, and romanticize it, and sell it, and have a marketing team that can put it on this beautiful platter and serve it up as a goal, then that's where we are right now.
Mm.
So, Jesse, I always like to conclude the podcast on a positive note. And I think I think you're the one to do it here for today. Can you tell me, as someone who is, at the forefront of the pro education, pro history, pro true history movement, where do we find hope?
Well, there's lots of sources of hope right now in this struggle. First and foremost, to me, it's in the young people who are refusing to be lied to. The
Mm.
reason why they are imposing these anti truth laws on schools around the country is because young people rose up by the millions during the 2020 uprising and said, we want to learn about how we could be witnessing such horrific violence against Black people.
Mm.
Where did this come from? And how does our society condone this? And were transforming education.
Yeah.
And it was that transformation that scared the wealthy and the powerful, and who were afraid that their privilege might come under examination. And so they began to try to enact laws to ban young people's ability from learning the history of how people build social movements to create a more just society. But even in the wake of these educational gag orders, and all the wealth they have to impose them, we are scoring victories across the country. In New Hampshire, we just had a legal victory striking down their anti history laws there. That was a major breakthrough because of grassroots work from educators and parents. And I'm thrilled to say that recently there was a victory in Florida for the first teacher who was fired under these anti-truth laws.
Uh-huh.
Amy Donofrio was fired. She taught at a school called Robert E. Lee High School, named after a Confederate general, right?
Yep.
Who dedicated his life to enslaving my ancestors
Yes.
and murdered untold thousands of people for that goal. And
Hmm.
Black children were sent to can you imagine the humiliation of Black children having to go to a school named after someone who hated them so intensely. And so Amy Donofrio had a sign in her classroom that said Black Lives Matter. She wanted her Black students to know that this was a safe space for them in an otherwise hostile environment.
Mm-hmm.
And for that, she was fired. This is an award-winning, nationally recognized educator whose students were invited to the Obama White House for national recognized work and community building. And she was summarily fired under these laws. But I am incredibly excited to let everyone know that she fought back. It was a grassroots campaign of educators who had her back, and she won in the courts, which is a major blow to Ron DeSantis and all of these anti-history laws across the country. So I'm excited for her, and I'm excited for what it means for the growth of our movement.
You know what, that is a great story, and I do think that, you know, it does say that you know, that truth can win, right? It does say that it's possible. I mean, when you think about that, a teacher, you know, is fired unjustly, and who had to be fought in order to win that battle, which was the, you know, the elected officials and the elite in that state, and still you can win. And this is an important fight to be involved in. And I'm going to put a plug for defensive democracy right now. And you could certainly teach the Zinn Education Project. But I want to say that defensive democracy, we mobilize in a very simple way. We get chapters together who essentially their job as chapters is to take turns showing up at school board meetings. Okay, that's it. So we give it so that, you know, most people who are involved in defensive democracy, you're talking a couple hours a month to attend these school board meetings. So, you know, we're trying to make it simple in a similar way that the Zinn Education Project and Teach the Truth was this little package. You just open it up and you do it, right? It's meant for people who are busy. So Jesse, final plug if you want to make for things that are coming down the road for you.
Yeah.
It'd be awesome.
Yeah, everybody should check out the Zinn Education Project. So many of us have been miseducated by a school system that relies on corporate textbooks. And all of us, whether you're an educator or student or anybody else, have a lot to learn about the history of social movements that can help us all in the current struggle for a better education system. So check out our website at the zinneducationproject.org and join us every month. We have a Teach the Black Freedom Struggle online class that's free and open to everybody in the public. And I interview a different historian every month about an aspect of Black history that we've all been mistaught, that has been hidden from us all. And those have been my graduate degree. It's been the greatest education I've ever had, is getting to engage with some of the best historians in the country to help us all understand the honest history we all deserve to learn.
Jesse, thank you so much for your time today. I deeply appreciate it. I look forward to working with you in the weeks and months to come.
Yes, I'll see you in the struggle.